were basically, they were kind of independent businessmen. They would not have really necessarily been part of the mission directly, certainly not ecclesiastically speaking. They would have been independent proprietors who had contracted or just agreed to work here with the Padres. It was very difficult, since this was, the wilderness. This was difficult to get a blacksmith to come here and stay here. Do you have anything to fire, or am I just making air?
You're just making air.
Oh, okay. Makes me think better. The blacksmiths of the time were sought after, and in my researches of the Padres' letters, they were always complaining about not being able to get a blacksmith. There was a constant labor shortage they had. They knew they could find people who could heat metal up and bend it and do all that. The problem was that there's so much technique and process involved that it really took years of experience to be able to take any piece of scrap and turn it into something else. So to get an experienced blacksmith required some doing. So one of the ways they incentivized the blacksmiths was by giving them their very own space. They had this beautiful workshop. They had an apartment of their own and their own kitchen, which was unheard of. There really was no other position here other than maybe the mayordomo who had all that.
That's the blacksmith's apartment and his kitchen he's talking about.
Showed that they, for some reason, they would pay them a nice round figure of 1 peso per day. And that would seem to be the going rate of that era, the early 19th century. They also did a lot of trade. So probably the blacksmiths, when they were living here, they lived here with their families. Their apprentices would have lived here as well. And they would have been here to basically keep the mission running. So then I'm just going to keep, you tell me what you need me to do here.
No, you're
Heating up some metal, okay.
You're not heating anything.
Oh, do you want to heat up any metal or?
No, I was suggesting maybe you do this.
Oh, all right.
I can't find the little one, I don't know.
It's around somewhere, but they could try that one.
Yeah.
Yeah, one of the things that, when you think of blacksmith shop, you think of a forge and an anvil, and a hammer banging away on the anvil. So we like to let you experience some actual metal bending so that you can intuit and internalize a little more what they're doing here. So we're going to have you bend some hot metal in a second.
Here, give it a shot. Oh, yeah.
Well, just
I'm
bend it
stronger
first.
than him, anything. Here you go.
Where did they come from? They were contracted through Mexico or through Spain, or?
The original tradesmen would have come up from Mexico City or La Paz, and the thing is that they could make a much better living there. So if they could get them to come out of there and come here, that would be the first trick, and then to get them to stay here was the second trick.
Would they give them land or something to get them out here, do some kind of incentive?
They would, well, they give them
Give them a
this,
shop.
and they might have incentivized them with something else too.
Yeah, okay, gotcha.
Whatever it took to get them to stay.
The craftsman.
But that is a constant theme in those Padres' letters, darn it, we had a great blacksmith and they left.
I have a question. How long is the apprenticeship? Do you know?
Well, I can guesstimate that by the record I saw with the youngest ever blacksmith master. So, typically trades have 3 levels: apprentice, journeyman, master. And when you first start out, of course, you're an apprentice, and then you would do that for a while, and then you become a journeyman. You might do more complicated operations and processes. You might also be exchanged to other blacksmithing operations, worked out for some kind of guild work where the local blacksmiths would get together. Hey, send all your journeymen over because we have a huge gang project and we need all hands on deck to do this giant thing we're going to do. And then when they finally arrived where the guilds felt that they had sufficient experience and passed all of their qualifications, they would ascend to being a master blacksmith. And what's interesting about the European guilds, at least, is, Lynn and I, because Lynn's female, people would come in and say, were there women blacksmiths, or is that incorrect? So we did all this research. It turns out there were female blacksmiths. And if you go back into the Middle Ages, you can find woodcuts of women blacksmiths working. And because of the guild rules, if a blacksmith had only daughters when he had children, there was no male heir. The eldest daughter would inherit the business, and this was upheld by guild rules. And now, when she remarried, it would probably pass to that husband, you know, that would then become his business. But it's kind of unique. There was a little bit of a women's lib window there for certain medieval Middle Ages women who were working in the metal trades.
There's also instances like out on the prairie, you'd be out in a farm somewhere, and the blacksmith needs help, you know, all it does is family, so you really need to craft it to do stuff there. So yeah, I think there are a lot more people doing blacksmithing than they really have on records.
Went there without a degree with her.
Oh, yeah. No, there's no doubt.
Yeah, you know, like yesterday, he dragged me out of cleaning out spices out of my cabinet, because he was making trivets for the mountain.
There you go.
Yesterday, and so I need help, so I did all the torch work while he was there yesterday, so.
Yeah.
Have you seen, I got a copy of this great book. It's, like builders and craftsmen of Alta California, 1769 to 1848. Because they've got books about priests, they've got books about some of the soldiers, mostly the officers. But this entire book, there are no priests, and there are no soldiers. It's just craftsmen, including lots of Indians who became masters.
Oh, yeah. Oh, yeah.
Master painters, master carpenters, master blacksmiths, as their names, and all, like from the record, quotations and who they studied under.
Yeah.
It's just a wealth of
I've got to see
interesting
that.
information.
So, it's one more time the title, please.
It's like builders and craftsmen of Alta California, 1769. You got a card?
I don't. I should.
Well, now I can send you the ISBN number and
I
everything.
can, you know what, my email.
Describe it into
My last name's Max.
Yeah.
My email's maxpax, M-A-X-P-A-X.
M-A-X-P-A-X.
Maxpax@airmail.net.
Are you guys here in Eric, in?
Yeah, we're just
here,
5
John?
minutes from here.
Yeah,
Yeah, we live over
We're from Orchid.
Oh, you're local.
Yeah, we're local.
I would like that book too, so.
What was the copy of?
Well, it's been published, I think, in the 1990s.
Oh,
Just if I remember it, I don't know. I got so many books on
Amazon.
California, but I came across that one, and it was like, you know, adobe makers and bankers and metal workers and all that.
Yeah, we've been there. So, you're gonna bend some metal.
My next blacksmith, this is what I make the fourth graders do, they all
I've
come
got this
through.
thing.
To make the fourth graders bend metal, because they all can't bend that piece of metal, and then we put a piece of metal, and they all get bended with their pinkies. With their pinkies out, their
Come on,
pinkies.
you guys
You're
remind
gonna
me of
bend
the
metal.
spoon.
You're gonna
You
go
know, like
first.
that, and it just kind of.
No, come over.
Bend it with
Yeah,
your
yeah,
mind.
Yuri Geller's here. We're gonna, all right, so you see how hot this is?
Yeah.
Now, this end is very cool. I can touch it to my cheek. It's not hot at all. The
That's-
part below my hand is very hot, and I'm gonna keep one hand here. If you reach for it, I'm gonna push you back.
Airmail.
So, I've done this probably well over 1,000 times. So stick out your pinky and grab up here, just right there, and then pull toward you like a lever. See how easy that is?
Holy crap.
Yeah,
You wanna
that is
do it
amazing.
next?
I believe you. I believe you guys.
Oh,
can
come on, you
straighten
gotta
that
feel
out.
this.
Come on, you can do this.
Yeah, right there. Pull down.
I am.
You're not
Oh,
pressing
okay.
on that.
I'm not pushing at all. It's all you.
Okay, that is amazing.
Yeah. You wanna try it?
Sure.
Right there, above my hand.
Builders and craftsmen of Alta California.
Is that steel?
If you're interested.
Yes, ma'am.
I'll give you a return.
I don't understand why that's not conducting a bigger hot.
Wow.
Why is that not conducting?
Very cool.
Well, it is, and you notice the color.
Yeah.
There you go, Sean. Grab up there.
Yeah, I see it.
Diverse arts. And you
Wow.
see
sweet.
Now, it's it's a little harder now. You can see the colors going out.
Yeah.
So another thing about this shop, it's kind of dark because the blacksmiths need to see the color in the box. Tell them what the temperature is. And when it's hot, of course, you know, we can shape it, twist it, whatever we need to do. But you know, I like people to experience that because you know, we often, if you haven't played with metal before while it's hot, you might think that it takes more heat than it actually does to bend the metal. It really weakens quickly once it gets hot enough. So this anvil here, this is a very modern anvil. This is not a period correct anvil. And this is not the sort of anvil you probably would have found in the colonial Spanish period. This is what's called a London pattern anvil. You know, you've got the classic horn, the square hardy hole, Pritchell hole. And the anvil that we did have here for some years was owned by the long-term blacksmith, Moises Solis. He was here 35 plus years. Yeah, he was here a long time. And the anvil that was here was actually his family's anvil, so the park gave it back to him. So, and we got this new one. This is what they would have used for an anvil, just a square hunk of metal. And it has a spike that's part of this. So the way they would typically have set up a blacksmith shop is to find a log or a stump and then just drive it in like a big nail and then work on this. And the nice thing about a small anvil is it's packable. You can put it on a horse and take your tools and some scrap metal, and you could set up a blacksmith shop anywhere. Take it up in the mountains, work for a few days, break it down, and go somewhere else. So this is what they would have typically used. This is what's called a swage block. And you'll notice it has various shapes. And this is how you make things like spoons and ladles. This side here has a large ladle concavity. So you take sheet steel like this, and like if I was going to make a steel cup, I'd have to get this good and hot, and then hammer it into that form, and then take it out and finish it up on the other side if I want it to be pretty.
What would you use to hammer it?
Well, we have all kinds of hammers. And the hammers, for example, people look at a hammer like that and they go, what in the world is that? So this is a fullering hammer. People can see, I think.
Say it again, fullering?
Fullering. A fuller, you know, there's people who have the name fuller.
Yeah.
A fuller is a metal form for shaping metal. So, and a fuller is a tool or the person who is doing the metal shaping, part of the blacksmithing operation. And you notice how this circular cylindrical groove, it matches that one there on the swage block, this one here. So if I take a piece of square stock, which is typically what they dealt with, and I get that good and hot, and I lay that in there, and I put the fullering tool over while I'm rotating it, hammering it. So you've got one person, blacksmith probably, nice and hot, puts it in there, holds the fullering tool. They have an apprentice or a helper who's hammering it while they're turning it, and you take a square and turn it into a round.
And then we'll fit in the square peg and round hole.
There you go.
You guys were asking about the shape of the bird.
And you get to make your own
I'm a
tools, I'm
jeweler,
sure.
and we have
Dapping cups.
dapping blocks.
Dapping
And
block,
you get
yeah.
dapping punches in the
Right,
right
you're
size,
right.
so the dap punch would match. Yeah. I have them, I actually just bought another one, got it yesterday.
Oh, that's all right. Thank you.
Never happened.
Yeah.
So
So
these,
I bought them a whole set. So,
Yeah, do you know what they use for an anvil at the Presidio in Tucson?
was it the meteorite? Yeah, it was
And then the Army came there during the Civil War when they came from California.
Yeah.
And they went and got it and they used it and then it disappeared.
well, it's wound up in a museum in Santa Fe. And it was the Presidio anvil. But yeah, it's probably the most unusual anvil in the world.
Yeah.
I mean, how many people?
A meteorite on Mars.
And it looks like a donut. It has a big hole in the middle.
check that out, make meteorite dagger.
Show the meteorite.
Yeah, we have a meteor here.
Do they sharpen that? How would you, why would you have it
Metal,
down?
yeah, well, it's like.
There's a meteorite right there.
And these are,
And they're almost all iron.
So you heat
Yeah,
that
those
up
are
and you can
basically,
shape
they're
that?
basically stainless steel, these are stainless.
So you can heat that and
Yeah,
shape
you
it?
That's
can.
wrong.
Yeah,
Because of the
and
heat.
people found out that they could make.
So blacksmiths back in the day were very, very important to trade.
oh, vinyl. Yeah. It would have made the difference between having a true center of commerce and just kind of an outpost
So we always show these.
addendum to what would have been, located somewhere else. If you have a blacksmith, you have the center of and the foundation for a real economy locally. Cause you could make all your tools, so if you could have, if you had a competent blacksmith, you could have metalworking, carpentry, home building, you could have, people doing, all kinds of farming. And if you did not have a blacksmith and none of those tools, you couldn't have blocks.
So back in the day, did you do like an apprenticeship program? Or how did you?
Yes, and someone asked me about the ages.
So, we can
So
pass them